Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Inspirate Business, where we're here to inspire you, to empower you, and to enlighten you as we do each week. Today, we're going to talk about something that's very dear to me and with somebody that's even dearer to me. We're talking on our beautiful continent, which is so rich in what Allah has blessed us with, mineral wealth, and we're talking mining with somebody, like I said, who is very dear to me. Welcome to the Inspirate Business Show from Toronto, Canada, Azhar Cajee.
Great to be here. Thanks very much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, Azhar, we're going to talk, as I said, mining, which is very important, how it's impacted internationally. You doing some amazing projects, on an international level. You've got a rich history of experiences in the mining sector. But like we do, what people want to understand, how did it all start? Now, you grew up in Mpumalanga.
That's correct, yeah.
In a small town called Standerton.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Standerton is a little town there, but 20 kilometers from there's a little farm called Platrand.
Okay.
And that is where the Cajee Bagalia family from the early 1900s had a little shop there and business there. So we originate out of Platrand. As we were growing up, schooling and that started, so we moved to Standerton. So Standerton became hometown, and we always call it Standerton. Yes, so Standerton is the area of origin and very, very dear to me as always.
Yes, your mom is buried there.
My mom is buried there, my dad, my grandfather, grandmother, granduncles, aunties, and a lot of family members are all buried in Standerton. So Standerton is, it has a special place in our hearts.
Right, so growing up, how many siblings are you?
We a brother who's in Australia now and a sister who's in Johannesburg, so just the three of us, yeah.
All right, so you currently in South Africa visiting, I guess, family and...
Yeah, I actually came down. I was here a few months ago for something else, for work, and then suddenly I came down and celebrated 6 years birthday with my sister. It was a surprise for her, but yeah, that's what brought me this time to Canada, this time to South Africa.
So you're currently in Toronto in the mining sector, right?
That's correct, yes.
Right, which company are you with?
So at the moment, I'm with what they call Ring of Fire Metals.
Okay.
I'm just finishing off a project there right now. So that's where I am at the moment. It's a project in the far north of the Ontario province of Canada.
So this is out way in the like rural part of...
Yeah, so Canada is very big. This is about 1,000 kilometers north in the same province of Canada, Ontario, north, close to the Arctic Circle, with massive reserves of nickel and copper and chrome and other things there. And there's major projects that are taking place there at the moment in that region.
And I believe you are the go-to guy for like commissioning a project from scratch, right? when a project, what they call greenfields.
Yes.
To take this into like a commercially viable mine, there's a lot of aspects to it, right? The logistics and the road infrastructure. Sometimes you have to build all of this, right?
All of this, yeah. So it's interesting what you're asking there because, yes, that's what I do. But where it began is a story also. So
yeah, so we'll get a little bit into like how you set up a project.
Yeah.
But how did you get into this industry?
Yeah, how did I get into this industry? Yeah. So growing up in Standerton, there was a high school there. One of the few high schools that was catered for so-called Indian kids. And one of the only schools around that was called Standerton Indian and Colored High at that time. Very well run with a Muslim organization that built a boarding school there, a hostel. We had students from all over the old Transvaal, but all over South Africa, as far away as East London and Cape Town and Durban and other areas that came there. So we were fortunate that we had education in our town. Myself was a different situation. In today's term, you can call it throw the book at him. I had attention deficit. I had every other thing that you can call about a child. That's why I concentrate a lot about children these days and growing up and going through the education system. So very early on, I branched out into the trades, left school, got into a trade and got into Cecil at a very early age of 18 years old as into trades. And I think the first thing we were taught.
How did you manage to? I mean, this is what 80s, right?
This is 78.
Late 70s.
Late 70s.
Also a very volatile time in our country, right?
Very
Just
volatile.
after the riots.
The 76 riots. But then they started building Cecil 2 and 3.
Of course, in that area,
and
right?
we had over close to 40,000 people working there, with a larger population, workers from all over South Africa and all over the world.
And how did you how does a brown kid at the time in the height of apartheid get a job at Cecil?
So one morning we were sitting around, and somebody said they're recruiting at Cecil. They're looking for young guys, and they're looking to teach into trades. So off we go, a few of us, which was guys still around. Syed Omarji, who's in Standerton, still in the trade. Iqbal Osman, who was in the trade, Chacha as we call him, and a few other guys. We drove off to Cecil, which was 60 kilometers from Standerton, went to the gate there, and we saw all these long lineups. And they had a simple test they were giving everybody that day. They put the isometric drawing, and they give a piece of wire to everybody and say, bend that. And if you could see 3D and bend these things, they put you on the one side. And the guys who couldn't. And somehow or the other, I ended up in a pipe school there.
Wow.
And got into pipe fitting and learning about, I've worked on Cecil 2 and 3 as a junior pipe fitter and a pipe fitter on the big X1 sleeperways. And then every time you drive past there, and I like to tell my kids always, the 2 towers there, they give off flames. I've been on both of them, unless they've changed it now. To the top. Oh. And I think on one of them, I've put my little name there, but somebody said they changed these towers over a few years. No, they do change these towers, but yeah. So that was a very, very big experience, the Cecil breakthrough.
And how many years were you at Cecil for?
So started in 78, 18 years old. I had to wait a few months just to turn 18 in 77 and get in there. And ended up working there till about, for Cecil itself, about 81, end of 81, early 82. And then somebody I worked with at Cecil, a very senior guy, and Rod Storrow, who became a very important person in my career as we went along, gave me a job as a junior quantity surveyor at a little construction company in Trichardt. And very soon he was appointed as the director of construction at LTA.
But today is Grinica LTA.
Today's Grinica LTA.
Yeah.
LTA wanted to create a process engineering division at that time. LTA was very big. Lewis, Thompson, and Anglo, or you could call it Lewis, Thompson and Associates. They built most of the highways and byways you see here, Carlton Center, some of the big buildings in Cape Town. LTA was the prominent construction company, which is now part of the Grinica group. But at that time, Grinica was separate, LTA was separate. So at that time, they decided to open up a process engineering division. And Rod Storrow went there, and he took me there and offered me my first job in Rayville, which is on the outskirts of Vryburg. And it's a lead and zinc mine.
Okay.
And that was my first job there, a trainee quantity surveyor, QS. And that was the beginning of many things. So that's what I continuously do, is quantity surveying and understanding the methods of measuring a method, large jobs. But that was the beginning of...
So you don't, I mean, you get into trade, right? You're struggling as a kid in school, right?
Yes.
And you become a quantity surveyor.
Yeah.
So you got the training whilst working.
While working.
Right, and funded by
I didn't, and that's very clear to my management and the people I've been working for like for 30, 40 years. I don't have any hardcore university graduations, but there are a lot of us in our industry that started on the tools and became CEOs of companies and over the years. So yeah, I fitted into the right, I call it sometimes the right time, the right moment, the right place, and it happened. And that was the beginning of many things.
And you were at Greenacre for what? How many
For
years?
LTA, I was at LTA.
Sorry, LTA, yeah.
LTA, the last 2 years of my 20 years at LTA was Greenacre LTA.
20 years, eh?
But for 18 years of it was LTA, the Lewis, the Thompson, prominent Thompson family. So 20 years with LTA.
Wow, we already come to the end of this intriguing conversation. Here is Azhar Cajee that's blessing us from Toronto, and is a captain, a real 10,000 hours he's got in the mining industry. And we're just listening to his story, an intriguing story. Let's hear more of it immediately after the break. Welcome back to Inspirate Business. And on our red hot couch, we have none other than Azhar Cajee, looking very, very dapper. Azhar Cajee is from Toronto, Canada, but hails out of Mpumalanga, very much a South African boy, but has had, wow, such a rich experience, been to some of the most remotest parts of the world. And we want to hear all about that. But you were saying before the break, you were the 20 years at LTA.
Yep.
And I mean, you started at a time when South Africa was in quite a different era, right?
Yeah.
The beginning of Cecil and the industrialization of South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
How was it at that time?
Yeah, it was an interesting era for people growing up in that era. We just came out of the 1976 uprisings. Cecil 2 and 3 was there, which recruited had over 30 to 40,000 people working there at one time. 80% of those were our black South African colleagues who were there, mostly hired as laborers and nothing more, even as intelligent as they were. So there was an era that I want today's South Africans not to forget. So when we make comments about what the past was, I think people need to study exactly what the past was before saying the past was like this or that. It's an important point, I think, because a lot of our people my age, or parents of people that are watching now, can tell you that story, that streets may have been clean, security may have been good, but it was for a few. And it was designed for a few. So the security was that we didn't do anything on the others. So yeah, that era needs to be always understood before.
And of course, education wasn't that accessible.
Education.
I mean,
I like to say that from my side, I think education was, the early school education was very accessible. One of the top educations in the country, I think in the world. If you see the guys from Standerton where they went.
But I mean, tertiary.
Tertiary was a problem because there was space, but also there was no future. You either became a doctor, which a lot of our people came. I think in our era, things started changing when a lot of guys went to university, accounting became in, and very few in engineering you ever heard of from that era. So,
I mean, you could count on your fingers, right?
Yeah.
The number of people that got into engineering and the mining sector.
Yes.
Right? I mean, this was traditionally an Afrikaans, English-based industry.
Yes, totally.
And here you are somebody that breaks into this industry.
Well, I think, again, as I said, lucky to be at the right place at the right time, right moment. So, yes, Rod Storrow brought me into LTA. And as you see my resume and other things, from there, junior QS, associate project engineer, project manager, senior project manager, business development, right through at LTA.
And this is all hands-on experience.
This is hands-on experience. We were the first guys. If you look around Johannesburg today, the team at LTA, with teams at Fraser Alexandra of that time and others, had developed a water cannon that could push 40 bars of water through it coming out of a pinholes in the front, which allowed us to go and look at all the mine dumps that you see around Johannesburg. And I'm talking about in the 80s. We had the mine dumps around George Goch, came later, but the early mine dumps you look at is the Knights Gold Mine, Very interesting history of those.
Where is that?
That's in Germiston.
Okay.
Where if you drive through, you'll see all these mine dams. One of them has Jesus Cometh
Yes, yes, yes.
on it.
Yes.
There's a nice gold mine next to it. Then there's Solomon Dam, Moses Dam, and all those mine dams around there. And they have a very interesting story that, and guys can research it and find out. That property belonged to the Mias, where the mine dams were. And in the old days, when they looked at dumping mine stuff, they dumped it on properties like Mias, non-white properties. 30, 40, 50 years later, in the middle 80s, that those mine dams became profitable because they had some gold in them left, and a lot of gold because technology was old before and the new technology came in. So that was the first project, and I think, although I didn't work with the Mias, but I always knew that the Mia family were partners in that. And that was the beginning where we then started breaking mine dams down. We broke the one in Nigel first to test it. We called it gold dams. And then we did one at Knight's Gold Mine, where we took this cannon. And one of my jobs was I was a cannon operator, early days, where we used to break these mine dams down and turn them into slurry.
So you use literally water to break, but like thrust.
Yeah, high pressure.
Right.
40 bar. 40 bar will, if I take it and aim it towards a motor car, you'll damage the car. That power. You would kill a guy if you hit him directly.
And this was technology that was developed in South Africa.
Totally South African.
Wow.
Went to the world, because as you see in future happened is 1987, 88, opportunity from a British office in London, opportunity came up in France, where they had mine dams in the southwest of France, a little town called Carcassonne, within the vineyards and the beautiful area there.
South of France.
South of France, and they recruited us at the London office, and I became part of a team.
And what was the project that you undertook there?
So it was called Salsine Gold Mine. It's in the southwest of France, where we, the South African guys, helped develop the technology, put the process flow diagrams and everything together, bought the equipment, and went to France and assembled it. And then taught the guys how to break these mine dams down and right up to commissioning it. So I lived there for 2 years between 1988 and 89.
What an experience that must have been.
That was a great experience for a little boy from Standerton. Yeah, it's sort of, I was daydreaming there most of the time.
You just imagine, eh? But it just shows that South Africa, from a mining perspective, was one of the leaders in the world, right?
Totally. If you look around today, you look in Australia and Canada and other areas of mining around the world, if you do not hear a South African accent or an Afrikaans accent, there's something wrong.
So at all these leading mining houses in the world today and these mining centers, our South Africans play a meaningful role there.
Meaningful role from CEOs to every other area. So there's a lot of South Africans in worldwide mining.
It's also, I believe, there's a great work ethic, right, that comes out of South Africa, the discipline.
It does, the discipline and a few other things, yes. And I think, South Africans, where we come from, even our Afrikaner brothers and, colleagues and everybody else, where we come from, have a very compassionate look about other issues around the world, because similar issues we have here, community, environment, and all the other things, happens everywhere else in the world. Somehow South Africans can understand that, our time and we came through and what happened. So South Africans do well in the mining industry worldwide, yes.
So you leave LTA, you do this project in France. That was for
then we did projects in France, but we came back. Then Barberton was
another gold-rich area, right?
Gold-rich area, and there were mine dams there. I think I spent over 2 years traveling every week to Barberton. I used to stop in Carolina at the Just Arts Cafe there and pick up.
Yes.
I bought a fishing rod from them and I used to get my food there and drive off to Barberton.
The famous street in Carolina.
The famous street in Carolina, and lovely to drive through Badplaats into the mine. So Agnes Gold Mine, I spent a lot of time there, which had some disasters lately. Then all the Barberton mines up in the mountains. Again, we took mine dams away. we took mine dumps away. We used to take the old mine workings and process it again.
Wow.
So it was Barberton. We came back. We did work in Richards Bay. Then we started, after 94, the world opened up.
Yes.
So we went into Ghana. I was one of the guys that went into Ghana. We did heap leach projects in Ghana.
Again, in the gold industry.
The gold industry. I was a lot in the gold industry at that time. Then Mali, Sadiola, I worked up there.
And how was it working in Africa? Experiences. You from France, now in Africa.
Yeah, I love Africa. So Africa has a very interesting. Ghana was very interesting. It was at that time run mostly by the Ghanaian guys. So for me as a new South African coming in, and some of my colleagues that came in, it was very interesting because it was the first time. After you remember that guys have to remember the past when you look at the future. There were no blacks. There were no guys that were allowed to be part of anything there, or engineers, or site managers, or mine managers. So when I went to Ghana, this was the first time, and it was very, very enlightening for me. That very interesting time.
And a country that also has a very high education level.
Oh,
right?
Ghana is top education in Africa, I think. You still see Ghanaian mining guys all over the world, like South Africans. You will find mining guys from Ghana all over the world, for sure.
Yes, we're listening to this fascinating story of Azhar Cajee, who doesn't finish matric, gets into trade from rural South Africa and ends up in France, in Ghana, in Mali, and so many more. And now is in what would be the capital, the financial capital of mining, Toronto.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
And that's where you plying your trade at the moment.
At the moment.
So let's now understand a little bit more about what it is and where is this mining sector. Currently, with all the opportunities, immediately after the break. Welcome to Inspirate Business, where we're here to inspire you, to empower you, and to enlighten you. And we're talking mining and all the opportunities. So many of you watching, I know youngsters, businessmen, entrepreneurs, guys that want to invest. We're sitting on a continent that has got some of the most richest mineral wealth. And here we have a specialist, Azhar Cajee, who we like to bring guys that have got their 10,000 hours in that sector. And usually have much more than 10,000 hours. Looking very young, I must say. You gave your age earlier, so I don't have to talk about that. But and I know you keep very healthy and all of that, right? So you working in a corporate, but then you also get involved in a private business venture, right, in the mining sector.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that was in the early days.
Yeah.
So I left LTA.
94 now, we open up.
With 94, we open up. 10 years ago, 2004, I'm still with LTA.
All right.
But at LTA, we start talking to the broader business people around to find out future partners, At that moment, I break away from LTA. I leave them after 20 years and join a small group of guys.
Because obviously there's a strong black economic empowerment component that's coming into the mining sector.
Yeah, so I get talking to some guys and say, well, you should jump here, come here, and we can create a little organization and go in there into the mining sector. But for me, it didn't work too well for that. It was more business deals, which has to take place. But I found that the business deals we were doing and the technical knowledge was not there from the guys who were doing the business deals. And in the mining sector, if you can be an accountant, and you can understand the finances and the NPVs and the IRRs and capital cost and all that. But if you're not in with the technical guys who really understand how something happens or may not happen. So I found a bit of a lack there, and it was just a general thing. I got a call from my ex-colleagues in Canada in 2007 saying, you want to come down and work in Canada and Dominican Republic and all over the world? And I think, without thinking, I said, yes, when? So that's how I, in 2007, ended up in
then
Toronto.
Left South Africa and
left
you
South
moved
Africa.
to Toronto.
I moved to Toronto and joined Extrata.
Okay.
Xstrata then got bought out by
Which was one of the largest mining companies in the
worked
world.
10
right?
years for them.
Yeah.
Until the time when Xstrata got sold to Glencore.
Okay, right. Yeah.
I worked with them.
Okay.
So the 10 years in international was very interesting. So the first place I went to was a little island in the Caribbean called the Dominican Republic, which is linked to Haiti, if you look at it on the maps. Dominican is always lucky they don't get the hurricane, the tornadoes and that, because they got big mountains always hitting Haiti. So, so you don't hear it a lot. It's a beautiful country. Now, I got there, Spanish
all
speaking.
I know about Dominican is that they get a lot of Miss Universes.
Yeah, that also. And so I got there, it's Spanish speaking. But man, if I felt at home anywhere, was in the Dominican Republic. They look like us. They had the body language of us. They didn't speak the same language, but at the same time, you think this one will. At the same time, I felt I was at home. And it's an old nickel mine that was built over 30, 40 years ago, owned by the Canadians, Falcon Bridge. And Xstrata had taken over Falcon Bridge, and that's when I was transferred over to the Dominican Republic. And it was one of the things we had to look at is extending the mine life and extending the process of this very, very valuable operation that we have, which is still running today. It's sold to other people, but I think the work that Xstrata did and the project team I was part of did allowed it to be sold and still operate. So I spent 3 years in the Dominican Republic, and then we went to New Caledonia in the South Pacific.
Wow, that's quite a jump from
the Caribbean.
From the Caribbean right through to.
So if you look at New Zealand and Australia, and you look through towards Hawaii, you see a little cigarette-looking, looks like a cigar. It's an island called
Pacific
New Caledonia.
Island people.
Pacific Island people. It's called New Caledonia. It's one of the few French provinces, as they call it, or colony, I call it, still existing in the South Pacific. It's French-speaking. It's French-controlled. They operate as a province of France in the French government. There's about 50-50 of what they call métropole, people from France, and the local inhabitants. And about 2.5...
Similar to like Reunion and that type
Similar
of thing.
to Reunion and the French islands in the Caribbean and similar, where France still has...
Yes.
So it's one of the largest nickel reserves in that area where Xstrata and other players have it's laterite type nickel in that area. So there was a couple of $1 billion project that Xstrata
So you start these things from scratch?
Well, not this one, but other projects, yes, we do. So normally you're involved in design, engineering, procurement, and construction.
And logistics, all of that.
All of that comes into your part. Later years as a project manager, you have good departments. You have very powerful procurement departments that support you, and engineering departments.
I mean, these projects are multi...
Yes, they're multi-billion
dollar projects, right? Yeah.
And so that was the Xstrata era, very interesting, two islands. Then Xstrata got sold to Glencore. And somebody said, you want to go back to gold, like one of my bosses. So I have to mention a few guys on this path of mine that I've been, South African guys. And it's important because starting in 88 in South Africa was a different era. And some of the guys I'm working with now are the same guys I started with in 88, 89.
You broke bread with them at that
broke
time?
bread with them. And some of those guys were the guys with me in France. So I named Ian Pierce, who's now the president of the Canadian Institute of Mining.
Wow.
He was my colleague and he recruited me into Xstrata. Dave Marsh, there was Stuart Lawrence, all these guys very prominent in the mining industry over the years. Joe Shirley, one of the greatest project guys that I've ever worked with. He's retired now. He's 75. He's the guy I follow on fitness. I saw him run every day and he's cycling at I'm not going to give his age, but he's much older than me. And so these are the guys. So there were South African guys that took me, and I went with them, and I'm still with them. Still with a lot of them. We're still working. We still have connections. So 3.5, 4 decades later, yes. We
Again,
still-
it demonstrates how South Africa has played such a huge role internationally in the mining sector.
we have contributed, yes. You know, CEO, everything, technology.
So just talking of that, right? I just want to shift a little bit.
Yeah.
Where is South Africa today? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of negativity, right? When you look at, you know, they say it's not as our gold reserves are not the way it was. It's been all mines, and you know, where are we in terms of?
Yeah, so worldwide mining, there's two areas that a lot of guys are staying out of at the moment, which we still in, is gold. Gold doesn't really have besides its value that we think of, gold is sitting in vaults, and it doesn't beneficiate. There's nothing more besides getting a jewelry or a ring or a
Yes.
or an earring of that. The second one is coal.
Okay.
Also dying worldwide, and we seem to be getting deeper into it. So what is the future of mining, and where South Africa will play a role is battery metals. You know,
Okay, with all the green.
as we're going down the line, we want to create batteries. We want to create smaller batteries. We want to create more powerful batteries. So what do you need? You need lithium. We need cobalt. We need graphite. We need nickel.
And we blessed with that?
And we and Africa's blessed with that in some form or the other. Some of them not in large quantities, but we do have all of that. And in the last few years, the focus has moved away from in South Africa, where people used to look at it, because there is a problem. We have a problem, and if we don't talk about it, we won't find solutions. Like I hear about the Zamazamas.
Yes.
Now, I worked in that area where we used to take gold and the leftover golds from the old mining operations of 1930s and 40s and 50s. Zama is into it now, and they're taking out gold. But that is creating this banditry where guys are going in. And I think internationally they're looking at all of this and they're scared. Openly, newspapers are talking about construction mafias and that mafia. There's even mining mafias that'll come to you and say, shut down there because we're getting it out of here. Now, I know that South Africa is working through it, and a lot of work has been done on it. So we have to clean that up first. We have to understand what is our role in the mining industry going to be in the future. Are we just going to be mining coal to supply to the world and block up all of Richards Bay and everywhere else? Are we going to green energy, and what is our plan for green energy? I know work is going on in the background. I know understanding is happening in the background, but when it comes to the front. So at the moment, South Africa is going through a difficult period of where investors are sort of pulling a little bit back.
And investors won't be really looking into fossil fuels and all of that now, right?
No, so they don't want to see coal.
Yeah.
A lot of investors, I know my gold mining friends won't be happy, but gold is also
not as the flavor of the day.
Flavor of the day. It's critical minerals, as they call them, and they're battery metals. Our future is going to be green energy, and understanding more on solar and wind and biofuels is a big name at the moment, where you harvest the forests and you create pellets and you use that. It's renewable. You're not mining it or anything. You're harvesting it. So there's a lot of things happening.
We've come to the end of the segment. I'm sorry I have to interrupt you. Again, very, very insightful. I want to, when we get to the last segment, I want to talk much more about the future of mining. And some parting words again for guys that want to get into the industry immediately after the break. Welcome back to Inspirate Business. We've already come to the last segment. Can you believe it? Whenever we have fun, it goes so fast. Azhar, Cajee, I was just saying at the break, you are a real encyclopedia in mining and a pragmatic encyclopedia. I mean, you've got that hands-on experience. And you were just sharing such profound insights around South Africa and the future of mining. And you were saying the future lies in green energy.
Green energy, yeah.
And minerals related to this industry.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you were saying there's an interesting project that I think within your midst in, I think, Madagascar. which
Well,
is
there's
around.
projects all over the world, you know,
Yeah.
graphite,
So
Madagascar.
graphite is also part of green energy.
It's part of green energy.
Right.
It's part of green energy. The internals of batteries. One day it's another whole subject to discuss what batteries is, the future of lithium, and at the moment, green energy and batteries is in a very limbo because technology is going so fast. It may eliminate one of these minerals. Could happen.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of like, oh, should we begin opening large lithium mines or should we be opening large so at the moment we're in there, but very soon I think so green energy is the way to go. I mean, I think South Africa with our issues here, green energy is going to be our savior.
Are we losing the momentum of that? Because a lot of view is that no, we are not. We have the opportunity, but again, we tend to do things very slowly, you know, and then other countries, other African countries are even leading the way.
Oh, African countries are starting to lead way. You talk about Rwanda and all these guys, it's a whole other subject. But yes, we are slow. I visited visiting my daughter and family here. They're also used to blackouts and power going off. And yet we shouldn't be. Somewhere along the way, we shouldn't be in that situation. So yeah, green energy, expansion of nuclear facilities, a big discussion around the world. You know, the least amount of incidences have taken place and safety is improving. They call the little units now, nuclear units, small reactor units that could come. But they're going to have a lot of environmental and social considerations before they hit the market. But yes, there's a lot of work going on.
That is again where uranium comes in.
Again, where uranium mining comes in. So mining will play a role, but we have to start going towards critical minerals. And coal is going to fall out.
Now, what I want to ask you, this is something that's dear to me, right? This industry has been limited to a few.
Yeah.
Remember, we have a challenge in this country. We need to get the large masses of our people into the broad stream economy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Zimbabwe tried that. I mean, it fell off. But when you look at Zimbabweans, a lot of the normal average Zimbabwean, they have this culture of mining.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, now you're talking of the Zamazamas, which is not regulated at all.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like thug type of mining.
Yeah.
But how do you get people? I mean, we're so rich as a country. And how do you use mining as a catalyst, right, to grow this economy?
Yeah. So there's something called junior mining.
Yeah.
So you have your big boys that you see around every day. But South Africa was also one of the pioneers of junior mining, if you really look at it. And I had an opportunity of working with them. Well, there was a guy called Glenn Lang who arrived from Zimbabwe in that time and bought out those mine dumps we're talking about. So if you really look at it, Knight's Gold Mine, Benoni Gold Mine, Nigel Gold Dam, and George Koch were the first juniors, if you really see, worldwide. Because all over the world, it was always in the hands of the big boys. You found junior exploration geologists that went around, but when it came to the funding and that, so junior mining concept is very known to South Africa. There's all sorts of models that South Africa worked with: build, own, operate, and transfer.
Yeah, that's a big word now at the moment, the buzzword at the moment.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
It used to be in the 90s, 80s, and 90s. So if you look at Benoni, Knight's Gold Mine, those were build, own, operate, and transfers. So LTA got into mining. We built it, we owned it, we operated it, and we transferred it.
So you transfer it back to the state?
Back to the investor, the owners.
Okay, to the investor.
And you build this whole team and you walk out.
Right.
So LTA, as an engineering company, we operated many plants around. We had a division that operated plants. That model fell out, and I believe that model's coming back worldwide, and you say it's coming back in Canada. That's the only savior we have. Secondly, having good environmental and social policies in place that eventually don't bring the Zamazamas to come in, or unsafe work practices, or social, where we're not involving the community in the project. Everybody can't work in the mine. So if you have a mine in the area, you'll maybe be able to hire 20 of the students or top guys and some laborers and that. You won't be able to hire the whole mine. But there has to be some models, which I see South Africa do, where the money is then distributed in other areas and the ownership. So I see South Africa's savior as the big mines, but I see South Africa's savior as an organized junior mining area.
Bringing in previously disadvantaged into the into the sector.
Yeah, and you
Training, development.
training, development. There's a shortage around the world at the moment. If you're not careful, Canada, Australia, even America are coming here and cleaning up our guys. So the day we lose exploration geologists, we got a problem. Those are the guys who walk around the mountains and find a piece of rock and bring it to Mintech and turn it into something. Less and less we're having of those guys. In the engineering field, we've got a major shortage, not only here, worldwide. You can't find a layout draftsman today, a guy who can lay out a processing facility. They are like scarce. So if you're not careful, we're going to lose our skills from here to the world. And yet we need to grow here. So I'm not looking at it in a grow because, having words and saying, oh, we can build mines today and we can build mines tomorrow there's a whole science to it. There's a whole process to it. But we must never forget that our environmental and social policies and our distribution policies or financial distribution policies must be in place. And I know that we had one of the best mining charters in the world. But yeah, we've fallen away. We've fallen by the side. And I believe that South Africa is going to be the player of the future. But
So bringing back that governance, regulatory framework, all that is very critical.
Very critical. Very critical. It starts with the Department of Mineral, and you have to understand and yeah. We don't want to go and scar all our. I saw some scarring taking place. This was just my view in Mpumalanga, which is going to take generations to fix. And they're close to highways and byways, and there's dust and everything flying around there. That will never be operated anywhere else in the world. Never. It would have never been operated 10 or 15 years ago in South Africa. But suddenly it's all opened up now. So, yes, we do have an issue.
So it stems again from one of our major dis-ease that we suffer with, which is corruption. Yeah. And I think a lot of that has come, from that, right? Yeah. So we need to bring back all of that regulatory focus and governance focus.
Governance focus is very important if South Africa wants to participate in the future, and I think there's a future. We can do it clean.
It's still very rich in terms of minerals, right?
Oh, yeah. Somebody said, we haven't even touched some of it. We know where they are. Wow. And the issue is that a lot of this is known by some of the larger mining companies. And of course, you're not going to let everybody know where it is.
Yes.
You listed claims, so you can go and say, oh, why this guy's claiming here? Why is this guy claiming there? But you don't know what's lying there. So there's a lot of minerals lying in South Africa all over that one day I'm hoping will come.
So look, you've blessed with we're coming to the end of the show.
Yeah.
You're blessed with the fact that you come from South Africa. Your heart is still here. I can feel that. You have traveled the world, some of the most remotest parts of the world.
Yeah.
From the Pacific Islands to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
In India as well.
India, yeah. That was
So you have that. You have the advantage to live in one of the leading international cities, Toronto, which is regulated to the highest level. All those laws that you talk about is there. Some parting words, right, to our viewers. What would be your advice to those that want to get into this industry? Maybe it be youngsters, maybe it be investors, and maybe even our key stakeholders in mining watching. From your experience, what would be some of your parting words?
So I would break it down into a few areas, and one of it is the investor who understands what he wants to do. So first of all, we have to look at who the investors are. But secondly, for the young people, I think education, getting into these fields, geologist, extract metallurgist, engineering across the field, creating design and engineer. So besides the mining that takes place, there's also a whole design, engineer, procure, construct. This is separate to the mining companies. And that's a whole other subject. South African companies like DRA have become now international. Usenco, although from Australia, but had a lot of the work here, turned international. And there's other South African So besides just the mining, the whole sector around it needs to be researched because there's a lot of work not only in South Africa but internationally. Service can be provided to companies around the world these days. So I would advise that young people look at it as careers for themselves, and investors but get the regulatory and security right first, and understand that. So that's my advice.
Wow, that's come from the grandfather of mining.
Oh, really?
It's been an absolute pleasure to have
Yeah,
you, Azhar. Really shared some profound insights.
So just on a parting point, I own no mines or anything, but I work in the mining industry and I enjoy doing that.
Yes.
So I'm not one of the gold mine or any mine owners or
Yes,
anything,
yes,
but I
yes.
enjoy doing that.
But I mean, you have such a lot of knowledge, and thank you for sharing
you.
all of this. There's so many opportunities for us, as you said, with the aspects that happen in the world, moving toward a more cleaner world and a cleaner environment.
Sure.
All that mining can do in terms of acting as a catalyst for that growth. We wish you, on behalf of the Inspirate Business Show, all the success as you impart your knowledge to others.
Thank you.
In the world.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you've learned as much as I have. On behalf of Inspirate Business, we thank you for viewing. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.